Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Conscious Coaches. We look forward to Tuesdays because this is a brilliant evening for us in the week where we just get together and have these soulful conversations, and it just makes our day and probably makes our week as well. I am Poonam. I am a certified conscious parenting coach. I'm the founder of Possibilities Redefined, and I'm here to get this week's nuggets of how conscious parenting can help us.
Hi, everyone,
Hi.
and I'm Anna.
Oh,
I'm also a conscious parenting coach, and yes, I'm just as excited. It's like the grounding for the week, even though we are coaches and we constantly study and work with our clients on this, we also need to practice all of the wisdom. And so I love our Tuesday mornings. We start on a foot. We have a day before where we live life, and then Tuesdays mornings, we ground ourselves into a new piece of wisdom that we can carry on with our kids.
to share the light and wisdom with each other, right? So we can grow. Hi, everyone. I'm Fatima, and I'm a Montessori educator and a conscious parenting coach. And we're so happy to be here with everyone. What came to mind is, what is conscious parenting? Poonam, should I start with, I would think that conscious parenting is many things as a whole, right? But conscious parenting is a way of helping parents, but not only parents. It could be a caregiver, a caretaker, anyone that's in the path of taking care of kids or guiding them. And where we're able to raise ourselves. That's the key of conscious parenting, right? Is where we focus on raising ourselves so that we can be better for our kids or for anyone who crosses our path. And in order so that we allow room and space for our kids to be the best they can be.
Yeah. I think, to sum it up, I feel conscious parenting is parenting with intention.
Mm-hmm.
So you just don't parent from a subconscious state, like the patterns that you've formed over the years of how you perceive life and how you live life, but
Mm-hmm.
you make a conscious decision to parent in a way where you have no agenda of what your child should be, but
Mm-hmm.
you totally accept the child that you have and work with that. But I must say that there are certain myths about conscious parenting, or when people talk about gentle parenting and all of that, there are lots of names that people give to a certain way of parenting. That does not mean that you don't have boundaries. That does not mean that you let the children go amok and do whatever they want. You still guide them and nurture them because you are the parent and you have the responsibility for keeping your children safe and well protected. So I just wanted to bust this myth in the beginning itself, that you still have boundaries, but you have boundaries that you create with love and nurturing, not the boundaries that traditional parenting teaches you, which is to do with punishments and correction all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to encompass conscious parenting in a few sentences or a few words. It's a paradigm shift. I think that kind of, if we understand what a paradigm shift even is, like, you just have to flip on another world and understand that what we know about life and parenting, it's very limited, and it's limited to our recent culture of a few hundred years, right? Since life has started being more organized the way we live now. I always think that if we have a chance to raise children more feral, that kids will prove us wrong in our thinking, that if you let them free, they will, have no limits, and they will get hurt or hurt somebody, because that's kind of the main thinking, that if we don't have laws and rules, there'll be anarchy. And I think there'll be anarchy only because we are not in our true selves. None of us are in our true selves. We're all conditioned, and we've sacrificed ourselves without even knowing, right? Unconsciously. So yeah, in that sense, there will be anarchy because we don't know who we truly are. But once you discover who you truly are, you find your place in the world. And I think when kids are born, they're meant to discover the world. They're meant to learn how to walk. They're meant to learn how to eat and how to do all of these basic needs to survive. And they look at you. They look at you as a parent for, to understand the world. So if we have it together and we know how to live from our true selves, then our kids will automatically pick that. And I really don't think that there'll be much friction between the parent-child relationship. And yes, this is in an idyllic, perfect world of consciousness, but I like to ground myself in that ideal because it reminds me that my child is capable and that I am capable. And if I can't do it, it's because I'm limited in my abilities. So then I go in with curiosity and inquiry to say, okay, what am I missing? Why am I in fear right now? How can I, and that might mean a session with the coach or another book on developmental stages of, right? The child changes so much. A 2-year-old has certain leaps,
Right.
3-year-old, certain leaps. It's so important to understand the leaps of the child so that we know how to provide and nurture and create the environment that's perfect for them to be able to emerge into these leaps and these developmental milestones. And this reminded me of what we talked, Fatih, about Montessori, and I want you to tell us more about that because
Yeah, and all these little cards that we draw are little nuggets of conscious parenting, right? Those are the keys of little nuggets that open up. Are we going to choose a card today, or we're just flowing with it?
Let's continue on today and kind of change it up a bit with what we were talking about, because it really hit what I was saying with what you were describing in our talk about Montessori and what Magda is saying about the will of the children and the importance of setting up the environment correctly.
Yeah, so we were speaking about how important the prepared environment for the child is, because this is the space where it's the area of development of the child. So you have to create, we would say, a prepared environment where the child can develop emotionally, physically, their language, intellectually, spiritually, and socially. So you give the skill, the child is able to get all these skills from your environment so that they can grow in a physical way, which is their motor skills, their movements, and that's how kids learn, is through movement. So we want to develop the child as a whole.
Yeah.
We want to create an environment for the child where they can develop fully in all these areas. And so what we were talking about is that we need to remove obstacles that stop or impede the development of the child. And because in these areas where the child develops their true self or their will, right? And so when these obstacles that are in the environment cause deviations. And so when we talk about deviations, in Montessori, she would describe it as two streams of energy. And when our two streams of energy, mind and body, our mental and physical, are separated from each other, this would cause like a disconnect. You would think, it's as if when you look at us, and if we're so much in our head, we are disconnected from ourselves. So it's all interlinked. And so they talk about the three main factors that cause these deviations or separation from one's true self. And we speak about the child has a will to act. But as the child is acting in this environment and an adult or a caregiver inhibits the movement of the child, there's a deviation right there. Because a child is meant to be curious, it's meant to explore its environment. And so when you restrict the movement of the child, you're putting a barrier in front of it, right? The second step that causes would say that a deviation would be the adult's will, and adult's will meaning the adult's will, which is substituted for the child, meaning the child is busy doing something or spooning or pouring water, but to an adult, it's not done in the way we want it, or the child is messy. And so what happens? Let's clean it up. Let's show them how to do it better. So in these all cause deviations, meaning that you're telling the child indirectly, this is not how it's done, so you're not good enough. So all of these aspects affect
and
the
another thing, sorry to interrupt, but another thing is that the moment you do this, subconsciously, the child is learning that there is a right or wrong way of doing things.
Yeah.
So you're introducing the child to the societal checklist of right and wrong. And then they get the message that all they have to do all the time is to do it the right way. And they are becoming dependent on you to figure out what is the right way. So you're killing their curiosity. You're nipping it in the bud.
Right.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that is beautiful. It's so true, Poonam. Like,
I'm taking notes. This is so fascinating.
And so we said the child always will have a will to act, and we inhibit the child's movements, or the adult's will to substitute it for the child, where the child is just meant to be curious, to explore. That's how they grow. That's how they learn. That's how they learn what they like, that's how they learn more about their own personality or more of their true self. That's when it gets developed. And so if that's where our conditioning, our culture is, how our settings are. This is how the child then adapts to its environment. So if we dare to put these obstacles in front of it, then what happens is they start building those walls and those barriers that move them away from who they truly are. And the third deviation would be when a child is left to its own devices, because that's not what a child is. A child's not meant to be left alone. You're there to guide the child. A child's brain is still developing. And so it doesn't mean that you should allow the child just to be. No, that's why we create, how you're saying, Poonam, the boundaries, the freedom within boundaries. You allow the child to explore, but you create a safe environment for the child to do that. And so you don't just leave it to just do as it feels or wills, but you need to create an environment where they can do it, but within a boundary, within safety.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say something, but now I lost my train of thought.
Well, I'll jump in, because what comes up to me is, well, lots of barriers. There's so many barriers we put in, right? We can, even having the TV turned on while the child is just playing on it, it's an interference with their perception.
I think I lost you, my connection.
We can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you again.
Nice. But what comes to mind is when you say it like this, it sounds so beautiful, but it also sounds a lot of work because we are so
Right.
tangled in not living this way, right? And so it seems like
Mhm.
to people always, and my clients always come and say, but how? Because I have a job and I have this and I have that. And so I think what's important for all of us to understand is that this is not necessarily, it is lifelong and it is a lifestyle, but it really takes the first 7 years of life to instill this lifestyle, right? So it's an opportunity for us as a parent to learn to get disciplined and to really live healthy and get our stuff together. And
Mhm.
if you set up the child in the first 3 years, then up to 7, it'll be that much easier. And then from then on, they've got the tools. And then there's room for mistakes and stuff, but it won't be as daunting as life is this way. And you have to be there for the first 7 years anyway. When the kids are little, everything changes. So we already change our lives around the child. So might as well, pick up some real tools and do some work on our own so that we can allow the environment to be as open as possible so that I can emerge and discover who it is they are. I want to
Yeah,
be born
and
again and raised by Montessori parents.
And I think all of this just leads to connecting,
Hmm.
allowing yourself to observe the child, watch the child, and just see what is it that the child needs. That's it. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think
it's
you
not
need
that
to
easy.
enter. Sorry, I think you just need to enter with curiosity.
Yeah, and that's where the child comes from, right? A place of curiosity, a place of exploring. That's how they learn. And that's when they learn to act consciously, because like Anna said, from the age of 0 to 6 years is the most important stage. That's when you have to build a strong foundation for the child so that they can grow into being their true self. And so when a child is born, in Montessori, they call it the womb, which is the driving force. Everybody has this driving force within them, the light that lights them up. And so from the age of 0 to 3 is when the child, it's just the absorbent mind, and where the child just absorbs all of these, everything that's happening in its around unconsciously. But from the age of 3, they start to move. And so they start to become curious and they begin to explore. And that's when that's where it switched from unconscious absorption to a conscious one, where everything in the environment affects them. And so they begin to act consciously, and slowly that's when their spirit begins to awaken, which is already within them, and their world begins to develop. So all of these facts, you see how from the moment the child's in the womb to when it's out into this earth is when we are affecting the child. Every little energy, movement, sound affects.
And it makes so much sense because if you raise a child and a baby Montessori style, right? So they put the bed on the floor so that they don't fall out. So they learn limits. So they learn boundaries and limits on their own ever since they're itty bitty, like 6 months old. So then by 3, they already have a sense of what's safe and what's not. But we have to think this way because we think in terms of, well, if I take my 3-year-old and put him, without a crib or a pack and play or something that's limiting the space, he'll be all over the place. Yes, he will be all over the place. But if you raise a child this way from the beginning, then the child learns and there won't be this big
Yeah.
gap of contrast, right? Which is why it's a lifestyle. Yeah.
Definitely. And I always tell my clients, sometimes I have younger clients and when I talk about, being conscious and doing the work and,
Right.
so because they know I work with parents as well. And if they're not parents themselves, they kind of ask me questions. Can we do this work before we are parents? And I always say, definitely you can, the sooner the better, because like we were discussing, we start impacting the child when the child is in mother's womb. So it starts, the journey starts from zero, not one month, not one day. It starts from zero. So if the mother knows how to regulate herself and understand that she's affecting the child and the child is being affected by any sound or any disturbance in the environment that disturbs the mother, that affects the nervous system of the child as well. So if you hear Dr. Gabor Mate, he always says that it starts from zero. So you get that vibe right from your mother's womb. So if you start your consciousness journey before you have children, nothing like it. But whenever you start this journey is good, because I started this journey when my 2 kids were adults, and I still feel that it has made a beautiful environment in our family where the interactions have become more joyful, and it's such a gorgeous relationship to have. So there is never a right time, but there is always the right time. So now is the time. So whenever you decide to change and make a difference, it will be the right time. But the sooner you start, the better it is, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was awesome, you guys. Thank you everyone for watching. And we'll see you next week, and we'll get back to drawing our cards.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Please,
Bye.
please like, share, and subscribe our channel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.